Here we've got a mid-1960s Gretsch drum set in tangerine sparkle. Pretty rare. I have not seen a tangerine sparkle kit yet, but it needs some restoration work, obviously. We need to take it all apart, polish all the chrome, repair that, peeling, new heads, some pedal work. This is not functioning well, and that's a good pedal. And the snare drum needs a lot of work, new heads. The bottom is all trashed. This should look really nice when we're done. Nice little kit. Ludwig hi-hat. Nice old new beat hi-hats. Probably from the early 70s or late 60s. I think they came out in 68. And this will be a nice drum kit. We'll do a picture when we're done. Alright, the first thing we got to do is get this hardware off the drum and make this repair. So let's do that. I think one of the most amazing things about this mid-60s tangerine orange Gretsch kit is that there is very little fading of the pearl finish, of the sparkle finish. Look at that. The finish is a little dirty, and that'll be cleaned up, but it's amazing how clean this drum is and how good the finish remains in terms of its fading. The other thing is the serial numbers on here are all 4 digits. On all the drums and toms, they're like in the 3 to 4,500 or 5,000 range. So they came out with this finish in 1966's catalog. I'm guessing this is an early version. Plus the hi-hats, which are early new beat hi-hats. They made this kind of stamp pre-1968. And there's the bottom new beat hi-hat. So this is a pretty good indication. Pretty good indication that this is a fairly early mid-60s. I would say probably a 66 or 7. I saw one for sale on eBay with tangerine orange, larger diameters, and the serial numbers were 5-digit. So I'm going to take this razor blade and get in here and scrape off the excess glue, because I'm going to be re-gluing that. With contact cement. And I will probably use an iron to heat this, to bring it down, to relax that plastic, because it's obviously wanting to peel up. So stay tuned. You can see we're getting that glue scraped off in there, and that will be important to get a good bond with our contact cement. So the way I'm dealing with the finish to clean that up pretty, which has turned out really nice, is I'm using a loose flannel buffing wheel. This is used for buffing lacquer on like guitars. And then And then I'm also using a thing called Pro Sol, which is, it's just like a Windex type thing. And all I'm doing really is all I'm doing is cleaning up the finish and getting the old dust and kind of baked on stuff. You could do this a number of ways. You wouldn't need a buffer like I've got. You can use you could use a drill with a buff on it and use automotive finish compounds. You could use just elbow grease. It doesn't take a lot. We don't want to build up heat. We don't want to melt it or create grooves in it. And I've done this before. It worked great. Look at how pretty that shine is. It really, really does the job. And again, Meguiar's, any of those automotive finishes will work very well for this process. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to do some real buffing. See all these lug casings, how grungy they look? Come on, camera. We're going to polish those up, but we're going to use a buffing compound. I think I'm going to use this white compound. This seems to work well on chrome. The yellow stuff does a good job too. And I will be wearing gloves because it's got to hang on to these parts and they will get hot. So we're going to use this buff over here. Okay, it's time to go ahead and glue this piece back down. Now what I've done is I've gone in here and scraped the excess glue on both surfaces, and I've got my 3M Fast Bond contact cement. It's great stuff. So we get just one of these cheap brushes and get in here and then apply it. I'm holding the camera and doing this at the same time, so a little tricky. Yes, I should be more prepared. I get it. Sorry for that. I was going to bring my tripod today, but I forgot. So we get in here, and then I'll go ahead and let that dry thoroughly, and then I will use a heat gun to release some of this bias in here. And what do I mean by a bias? The bias over time, because the underlayment is a little bit different composition than the sparkle and the top layer, you get, I would imagine, with heat and sunlight and all that stuff, the tendency is for this to not lay down like it should. And so the bias, it just pulls it up. So we're going to try and heat this to soften that plastic so that it will lay down better and remove that tendency to pull off. And that's all a bias is, a tendency, right? A tendency toward something. And this one has a bias or a tendency toward lifting. So I think that makes sense. All right. Okay, so with the pressing cloth still in place from using my I'm using my iron to heat that seam. I was able to press it down and then thoroughly clamp it with this piece of lumber. Now I'm just going to let that sit and let it cool to normal temperature, but I'm going to also let this sit probably for a day. I don't really need to work on this anymore today, so I would just let that sit. I will have some seam repair to do here and here. And fortunately, the customer has this piece of plastic that came off the bass drum, so we'll get that repaired as well. Should turn out good. Okay, we got this tom-tom reheaded and tuned up, and it sounds fantastic. In fact, it sounds just like a Gretsch tom. Sounds just like a Gretsch tom. Just beautiful. I like it. Now we got this guy. Remember, we did this seam repair. We got that glued down, clamped it overnight. Got that scar there that's not going away, so got to live with that. But we'll get all the hardware put back onto this, and it should be great. It should be that great Gretsch sound. Got the rubber feet on now, got the chrome all polished, all tuned up, so it sounds like a Gretsch. Man, they're nice. Nice tone controls. We all think that they sound better just open, maybe. But yeah, great Gretsch sound. Great Gretsch look. Well, we got a lot of work to do on the hoops. This will be removed. They'll be repainted and this glued back on properly. And of course, our issue with the cobwebs will be gone, and then gluing the seams. This has been in a basement since the early 1980s, and then moved to another basement in the last 4 years or so. And perhaps because of that, we have a wrap that has not discolored at all. So it's pretty amazing. There's definitely dust that we need to clean off, but it's in great shape. Alright, so we're to the point now where we've rough sanded this hoop, and they were pretty bad, pretty dirty, and now I am masking this area bit by bit so that I can spray them. And once I'm done with that, I'll take that tape off and then I can re-glue the pearl. I don't need paint in here. The glue tends to soften that paint anyway, so we just leave it off. And that's how it was originally. So I've glued up my rim, my hoop I should say, my counter hoop. The contact cement is dry on both the inlay and this, so we are ready to install that. So we've got this great Gretsch floating action pedal, which is essentially a DW pedal. That's where they kind of got the whole patent We've got to make a new leather strap because this one's pretty worn out, stretched out. So I've got a piece of leather. So I'm just going to copy this. So I've got the width already figured out. Just go ahead and cut that. I don't think that cut fully. Anyway, we'll get that cut, and then I've got my hole puncher. And we'll test the action of the pedals to make sure that it's not going down too far. That seems to be the issue with a lot of these older pedals when the leather stretches. But we'll get it done. That's good. That's good. We're done. Cut. Thanks. Well, we can see this Gretsch pedal is fairly grungy. I cleaned up the heel plate, and that turned out real nice. This, I think I'm just going to scrub because it's painted. So I'm going to scrub that with a brush. But this, as you can see, I mean, that's like a DW Camco pedal. Whoever invented it, and I'm sure there's somebody out there that knows. I've read it somewhere, but I can't remember the name. But this was licensed, I think, originally to Gretsch, and then Camco, and Tama, and then DW. You know, made that DW 5000 pedal back in the 70s. It's the same as this, exactly the same. Screws match the holes and everything. So here's our buffer. Wire wheel. I think it looks a lot better. I think it looks a lot better. We'll continue to clean this up, make it super nice. Let's go after the snare drum now, take care of it. Broken snare wires. Need to replace those. I think that head will be fine. Should work out great. Not. Let's get moving on it. I think what makes Gretsch drums so interesting is they're almost quaint in some of the things they do, or did. Look at that. They just have these little tabs that they put on, spin off. They sound so good, but man, they were kind of cheesy with their hardware and just their basic construction of some of the things, the way they did them. Okay, now we got special attention to be paid here. This bass drum hoop is the original playing side hoop, and it's got that mark where the pedal sat, so that's going on the batter side, the playing side. And then I'm going to line up, the only marks on this are where the hoop was, or the clamp was, so we're going to line those up exactly the same. And I'm going to keep my nicest claws on the front of the drum. Okay, so there we go. It's complete. The 1964 Gretsch Tangerine Sparkle Progressive Jazz Kit with the Max Roach 4-inch snare drum, 20-inch bass drum.